Fighting game players and actual fighters are very different types of people, but their activity is more similar than you may think. I'm of course talking about the mental side of their games, because as you can tell, the physical side is not. So, how on earth do fighting game strategies carry over to real fights? Well, to start off, we have the most overlapping part of both, which is conditioning. Not this conditioning, because that's exercise and fighting game players don't do that, but conditioning your opponent. And what is that exactly? Conditioning is making your opponent do what you want them to do. While I'm not sure of the term used for it in boxing, in fighting games we see this in situations as simple as walking up to your opponent so they think you will attack, then simply doing nothing so you can punish. However, at the highest level of the game, it gets a lot more complicated. Take for example, Daigo Umehara versus PR Balrog. Daigo, also known as the GOAT of Street Fighter, decides to throw fireballs from varying ranges, allowing PR Balrog to jump over them. He does this a lot of time throughout the match and essentially gives away free damage. However, Street Fighter is a game of chess, and so he does this.
Oh, what a setup! That's gonna work.
From Daigo.
That's gonna work. And that should be the game.
Boy, did he save that until the last round. PR Balrog landed so many jump pierces over the fireballs. He felt incredibly comfortable with that. But Daigo, he had something in his back pocket the whole time.
By throwing the fireball at the end, he made him jump, as he had a habit of doing that during the match. Daigo saw this, and then when he wanted him to jump, he just threw a fireball. A prime example of conditioning. Now, this makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But how can this possibly translate to fighting? Nobody jumps over people, and you can't throw fireballs. No, but you can absolutely rock someone's jaw. Which is exactly what Canelo Alvarez did to Amir Khan. A bit of context for non-boxing fans, Canelo is one of the greatest boxers to ever fight. And Amir Khan was a good fighter. He was an Olympian and former world champion, but he was fighting over his natural weight and not really on Canelo's level. Canelo threw strong body shots at Khan, wanting him to lower his hands, but he was not dropping them. Until finally, the pain began to build up, and Canelo feints a low body shot, and Khan, thinking about how Canelo didn't really follow up after his body shots, lowers his guard to protect his hurt body. That was exactly what Canelo wanted him to do, and he wouldn't even get a millisecond to realize it.
And everybody.
Tremendous right hand shot by Canelo. Kenny Bayless is stopping.
I am the true master of the fist.
Conditioning, however, is only a fraction of the mind games in a fight. Another big part at play is adaptation, to make something suitable for a new use or purpose, or in simple terms, changing things to make it work. How does this apply to fighting games? Well, on a basic level, your opponent begins to spam fireballs, so instead of standing there, you jump. You have now been affected by something, watched what happened to you, learnt why it happened, and finally figured out a solution to the problem. Boxing has some very good examples of this as well, and you don't have to go very far back to find them. We can start with just the biggest fight of 2023, Ryan Garcia versus Tank Davis. This fight is very highly regarded as it ended what is known as the Mayweather era, where fighters needed to be undefeated to gain any promotion or name for themselves. This caused fighters to go for easier fights, to go for a long undefeated record, rather than the best fighters fighting the best fighters. After this fight, boxing would change for the better, with Floyd himself saying, whoever wins this would be the new face of boxing. It actually looked like Garcia was doing decent against Tank, but that was for a very short period, as Tank was watching and analysing Garcia the whole time. From what I analysed, Ryan Garcia kept going in with the leading hook. He also moved his hand away from his chin when he threw it, which was a known fault of Garcia in his fights. So, with him repeatedly throwing the left hook, Tank was ready to counter, and he wouldn't have to wait very long for it, because Garcia threw yet another hook, and Tank... If these two games are so similar, why can't Daigo just learn some boxing fundamentals and dominate there too. Well, that's probably the stupidest question ever formed, but in boxing, you get hurt. Imagine a fighting game, but the more damage you take, the slower your character moves, you do less damage, you get moves taken away from you, and for some reason, you start to think slower too. Well, that's basically boxing. With it being a very mental game, once you get a good blow to the head, even if you don't win immediately, it slows their thinking and makes them more panicky. In Tyson Fury's recent heavyweight bout versus Alexander Usyk, Usyk was fighting a very technical fight as he was against a bigger and heavier fighter, focusing on timing and reading Fury's shots. This works well when you can think, but Fury hit him with a big shot to the head, and you can see him physically slow down and not be able to think or move as he would want to. In a rare situation, he actually turned it around by hitting Tyson with a bigger shot later on, and, well, I don't really need to explain the effects of it to you.
Stop it! Whoa! Fury! He's down! The corner!
So, while there are similarities between the strategy of fighting games and combat sports, look at the condition of the martial artist versus you Guilty Gear players. Like, please, can you guys use deodorant?